Okay, well, I'm Nancy Schultz, and I'm the current chair of Sustainable Newton. And we want to welcome all of you who have taken time this morning to hear this fascinating presentation from Noah Zelkind of 80 Acres Farms. I want to thank you for your patience while we had some technical uploading. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking your time. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Maurice Carter, who is our chair of marketing and outside communications, and he will moderate from this point forward. So Maurice.
Thank you, Nancy. So everybody who signed up and joined us, we promised you guys a Zelkind from 80 Acres. And at one point we were expecting Mike Zelkind, who is CEO and co-founder. Mike is actually on Capitol Hill this morning meeting with a group of senators, sort of a last minute thing. And he definitely, and I'm sure Noah will share as well, he sends his regards, and they're very supportive and have been. All the folks at 80 Acres Farms have been very supportive of us at Sustainable Newton and have shown great partnership with our organization. We became interested in 80 Acre Farms when we heard about the plant being built here, the farm being built here last summer. It's a vertical farming operation, and Noah will give us a much better understanding about what that is. But what caught our attention, first of all, obviously, was a $120 million investment and 150 jobs. But as a sustainability organization, we were interested in the sustainable aspects of vertical farming. And so using less water, no pesticides, not having to travel as far with food to get it from where it's grown to where it's consumed, and using renewable energy to do that. So I know that Noah will give us a much better appreciation for that, but that's kind of why we wanted them to talk to us. And so Noah is currently the director of data analytics and insights at 80 Acre Farms, but he's had a very fascinating journey to that point. Obviously, there's, I don't know if I said it up front, Noah is Mike's son, but Noah graduated from NYU and went off into the world of high finance, working for BNP Paribas, and in a number of roles. Part of it, obviously sustainability related, helped them launch green bonds, but also found himself at the trading desk where they traded more fossil fuel derivatives than any other financial organization in the world. So, but I love in your bio, Noah, that it talks about returning to Cincinnati to build the world that you want to live in. And so I'm sure as we go through this, you'll share what that means and tell us more about 80 Acre Farms. And then for folks on here, we definitely want to get plenty of time for Q&A. So if you want to go ahead and type your questions in the Q&A function in Zoom now, we'll ask them for you at the end. If you want me to unmute you so you can ask yourself, raise your hand, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of questions and plenty of time for them. So at this point, Noah, I'm going to turn it over to you. And again, thanks for joining us.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Before again, thank you obviously to Nancy and Maurice, and we're very excited, to start to really engage, with the community and to have a chance to share a little bit about what we do with you guys. Looking forward to talking about, not only kind of why we're so excited about what we do, but also a little about how we actually make that reality and what that really means as we look forward. Yeah, appreciate the introduction. Definitely a little bit of that odd story of starting in banking and realizing that wasn't exactly the person that I wanted to become, and have been working with my dad on this basically since the very beginning, trying to figure out first how to grow, then how not to kill some plants. Once we figured that out, how to really kind of figure out how we can hopefully bring this to communities all around the country. So I will try and get my screen up here, and we can get started. Nancy, are you able to see that all right?
I can see it fine. So
yeah, you're fine.
So on one hand, I hate to start with a little bit of doom and gloom, but I think as we look, we really do have a lot of conviction about why what we're doing has the opportunity to make an impact, and why we're really so excited every day, frankly, when we come into work and when we work on growing these plants. And I think, over the last couple of years, food security has really come to front and center, right? As we've had, the whole continent of Australia seemed to be on fire a couple of years ago, something I think many of us have already forgotten, to California having trouble, even from drought and fire last year to floods this year that are going to impact our lettuce crop as we make the turn from spring to summer, as we've lost, acres and acres and acres of fields, to increased challenges with disease, and the continued amount of, pesticides that we're having to use to really secure, the calories that we need as a country. And as you look, that's really only one of a number of pretty massive trends that are why you're seeing things about technology and food, ag tech, come up more and more. And I think, from the fact that our population continues to grow, and globally we're expected to need 70% more farmland over the next 15 to 20 years, right? To food security and recalls, especially with lettuce, every year between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it seems, at least once our grocery stores don't have lettuce. And that's not for lack of trying, that's not a coincidence, right? There are a number of trade-offs we've had to make, in order to build the incredible food system we've built here. Statistically, more people died from eating too much than eating too little in 2017 for the first time, in human history. And on one hand, that's an incredible accomplishment. And on the other, it's really quite scary. And, so there are also major trends coming out of, COVID and just general society around paying more attention to the food we put into our body, right? Trying to be sure that we're able to put kind of cleaner foods, whole foods, and really starting to think about food as a type of medicine. Right? People appreciating the complexity of supply chain and wanting to reduce plastics and to reduce food waste, leading, to an opportunity to really reevaluate this incredible food system we've built and try to understand how can we use technology to support and augment certain elements of it. And food waste specifically is a really material challenge. Right? What you're looking at here is to be honest, kind of simplified version of the supply chain of a lot of the food that we end up finding in our grocery stores. Right? It starts at your farm, it has all of these touch points. And the challenge is that each group and each person at every touch point is doing their best and has gotten quite good at what they do. Right? And so we're losing only 2%, give or take at every touch point, let's say. The challenge is when you have 10, 11, 12 touch points between the farm and your table, even if every group is being very efficient, right, that compounded waste is still about $162 billion worth of waste just in the US alone. And even worse than that, the USDA estimates that leafy greens lose somewhere between 43 and 45% of their nutritional value just trying to make this journey. And we can do better. The picture on the left over here is, looks like apple harvests, but I'm sure some of you are familiar. They're actually harvesting tomatoes. And that's what tomatoes look like when they're picked around the country, and especially off season when we're getting them from South America or other parts of the world. And the challenge is we have to pick these tomatoes green because otherwise they'll turn into mush as they try and make the journey. And that journey again is really quite grueling. But that is one of the major things that we've been focusing on, and now there is a better way. Right? With vertical farming and with our solution, especially for these more perishable crops, right? We're able to put our farm, right next to the retailer's DC. So the only trucking, the only distribution point is really when you take it home from the grocery store, right? And what that really allows us to do by compressing this complex supply chain that, as we've all seen with COVID, is often more global than we'd realized, is it allows us to start to really be providing food in a way that's better for the world. And from zero pesticide usage, because we grow indoors and so we don't have the same pest pressures as you do in an open field, to spatial efficiency and the opportunity to really bring food closer and closer to the point of consumption, to using renewable energy, and my personal favorite, which is water consumption. Right, we use 95% and maybe a little higher, less water per pound of produce. But I'm a skeptical person, and so when you hear 95% less water, it sounds a little too good to be true. And in many cases it would be. But here, the way our system works, and it'll make a little more sense when I get to a video later on, it's actually a relatively simple system. We bring rainwater in, and we pull it in, filter it, monitor it, and then we add fertilizers to that water and send it into our plants. But we don't water from the top, right? We water actually directly to the roots. And so what that allows us to do is we give water to our plants, and one of two things happens. Either they use the water for their biological processes, or they don't. And if they don't use the water, it drops down, we capture that water, refilter it, and recirculate. And if they do pick up that water, then one of two more things happens. Either plants use it in biological processes, as discussed, which is great. It means that water is turned into plant, and we're going to end up eating it, or they don't. And a lot of people don't realize, but plants actually sweat kind of like humans do. They emit about 70%, they transpire about 70% of the water they pick up inside of our systems. Well, what we're able to do is actually dehumidify the air. We pull that water back out of the air and recirculate that as well. And so when we talk about being more water efficient, it's not an incremental improvement. It's really a different system that allows us to have a structure where when we bring water into the facility, there's nowhere for it to go except for in the plants. And learning a lot of these details has taken us a decent amount of time. We've actually built and are operating, it was 8, recently it's become 9 farms, and with the farm down in Covington it will become 10. And each farm up until these last couple has really been an entirely new generation of technology, because as I'm sure you guys are familiar with, farming is very, very hard. And so we went through and built different small facilities. Other people in the space see it as a pure tech play and went out, raised outside money, and then said, okay, I'm sure this is easy, built their farms, went big, and hoped that it worked. Right? We took a slightly different path. My father worked in the food industry for a very long time. Most recently was one of the largest canned green bean producers in the country, and understanding what that process looks like gave us a real appreciation for the complexity of the journey we were going to embark on. And so we started out with our first farm down in Daphne, Alabama, where honestly our goal was quite simple. It was to convince ourselves first that this wasn't alien food, right? And so we grew in an outdoor field the same seed that we grew in a greenhouse, the same seed that we grew in our first little container. And we sat there and we ate the food, and we took samples and sent it off, to the University of Arkansas to get, nutritional readings back. And we were hoping that it showed that this was real food. And when we got back the results, we were really, really pleasantly surprised that not only was it just as good as what we grown outdoors, but in a lot of cases, it was actually better. And that was when I realized we had to figure out how to try and make this work. And so we started in Cincinnati, right? A vertical farm is not a vertical farm is not a vertical farm. In the same way that greenhouses have different levels of technology, right? That's true with vertical farms as well. And we realized that we needed to really figure out how to control our climate. Right? And climate's only one portion. Once we figured that portion out, we had to figure out lighting, and then realized that no matter how much we're learning, we're going to have to keep learning about crops. And so we kind of built all of these different farms up until we put together that honeycomb you see on the right-hand side. And that was really kind of the first time that we said, okay, I think we're ready. We think we kind of understand enough that we can, in a responsible way, try and bring this product to people at scale in a way that actually can become meaningful to the communities that we're operating. And that led us to our 70K facility. This was really kind of our crowning joy, which put together all of the learnings from each of our different farms to build kind of what we believe is the first vertical farm in the world that actually delivers on kind of at scale all of these incredible promises that the industry has. And rather than just talking about it, I know we have a small clip in the corner, but I'd actually love to take you guys inside.
I'm heading to a new breed of farm that seems to be a natural home for all the technology you could throw at it. Expected to be worth a staggering $50 billion by 2026, the indoor farming technology market is now a serious player when it comes to producing food. Whoa, look at this. This is insane. The sheer size of this. How tall is this?
It's about 55 feet high. This is a metric cube. So this is kind of 10 by 10 by 10. So if you picture each one of these rows, you're looking at 13,000 plants.
I'm inside the world's first fully automated indoor farm. Sitting on just over 1 acre of land, 10 acres worth of produce is grown by stacking the fields one on top of the other, producing a massive 2 million pounds of lettuce each year alone. You cannot see a space in between these. They're way denser than you could ever get in the outside world. The entire growing system controlled by computers, I can see how something like the plant sensor would fit really well in this world. This is almost like coding. It's almost like biological coding, programming plants, understanding their behavior and trying to elicit that behavior by programming their environment.
Absolutely. And that's really the big step, is moving from learning how to improve growing because I saw something or we saw something and it looked good, so we want to try and replicate it,
Yeah.
to actually using cameras, using artificial intelligence to detect those differences.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can be iterating on a much, much faster basis.
I think there's something happening behind us, and I'm kind of worried that the robots are taking over.
What you're seeing is actually one of the plants and one of the tables coming all the way down from where it was growing on its way out to get harvested.
I feel like I'm in a space station and super perfect lettuce has just magically appeared from the heavens. And the automation doesn't stop there. What would traditionally be a labor-intensive process has been given the full tech overhaul, saving time and money, ultimately allowing the team to have between 17 to 20 more growing cycles than outdoor agriculture each year. And then what happens?
After that, you just stack it on here.
And that's it. It's 200 plants in like 10 seconds or less.
And that's how we do it.
Astonishingly, it takes just 10 people to plant, manage, and harvest the tens of thousands of crops that pass through here every single day of the week. So after these have been rehomed into their bigger modules, where do they go next?
Yeah, so then we take them and we put them into large tables,
Yeah.
which is what they're going to end up living in as they work their way through our grow zone.
Okay.
And we end up doing, with this exact process, 70 to 80,000 plants a day.
In roughly 20 days, the crops have matured and are ready to harvest, a process that takes 3 to 4 times longer in traditional agriculture. To find out how urban farms like this one are going to revolutionize our food production system in the future, I'm catching up with 80 Acres co-founder Mike Zelkind. In the future, will you ever see things like the carbs that fuel humanity? You know, your wheat, your corn, your soy being grown in a system like this.
Yeah, we feel that to really make vertical farming become important in this world, we all have to get beyond lettuce.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
salad machine.
Exactly. Will it be growing corn and wheat? Not necessarily. That's not the most effective thing to grow. We feel tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers and soft fruit like strawberries and blackberries
Yeah.
are critical to make this a very important capability all over the world. The goal is to prove that you can grow the essential food supplies to a lot of these locations that have high population, scarce natural resources, and need sources of food that are local, that are close.
An added beauty of being able to grow this many acres of food in an urban environment means it frees up farmland further out to concentrate on producing more staple crops like wheat, maize, and rice that will be just as vital in the future. So you've come an enormously long way. This is 80 Acres Farm 2.0. What's the next step?
The future is systems like this spreading all over the country, then to the rest of the world. 10 years ago, this was science fiction. Today, it's possible. In 5 years, it'll be so ubiquitous that we will be shocked that this wasn't done before.
I'm heading
And so that's kind of what it looks like on the inside, and I think it helps get a sense of how what we're doing can really start to be different. Right, the beginning of our process is very much the same. We seed into soil or soil-like media, right? And once the crop is grown, we harvest it and go through the same regular processes. But inside of that grow zone is really, what we've spent the last 7 years learning and building and developing, and is where I think this technology gets to be really, really exciting. Farming is really hard work. I know I keep saying it's because it's just incredibly true. And as you go through, if you farm your entire life from 15 till it's not incredibly fun to, or easy to be tilling the field, tilling soil anymore, you get 50 chances to grow your crop. And maybe you have a summer and a winter crop, or a fall and a spring crop, but you get about 50 tries. And unfortunately, the predictive power, the ability to learn is quite tough, right? Because there's just so much that we don't control. And so for thousands of years, we've been accumulating this farming wisdom as a society, as a human race, right? We've been accumulating this wisdom, but call it wisdom rather than knowledge on purpose, and it's because it's neither transferable nor necessarily replicatable, right? A good farmer down in Georgia is not necessarily a great farmer in France, isn't a great farmer in China, and they certainly wouldn't be good farmers here. Right? Even the best farmer in the world doesn't necessarily guarantee that they have, a perfect crop every year, because there's just so much out of our own control. And so the ability to learn has been kind of something we've been working on. And greenhouses come around and they're a little bit better, right? You extend the season, you get a couple turns, you eliminate the anomalies from your experience. You eliminate the snow, you eliminate fires, right? You reduce some pest pressure. And so you can start to analyze your information, your historic information, and you can analyze and hope, right? But you still don't know exactly what's going to happen. You don't control the environment. Every greenhouse, is a little bit different. And so while you're getting closer, we're still not able to really close the learning loop and apply the scientific method to farming, right? That's the way we learn in the rest of society today. And that's what gets really exciting. Inside that cube that we showed on the video, it's a 10 by 10 by 10 cube. And what that means is that we're growing 100 fields simultaneously in just that one farm up in Hamilton, Ohio. And we turn every field over about 25 times a year. So what that means is that in just that first farm, we get 2,500 cycles a year instead of 50 cycles a lifetime. And our predictive power is not perfect, right? But we do have cameras and sensors, and we're able to start to really look at what did the crop look like and what did it experience quantitatively throughout the course of its whole life, and start to do that analysis and start to train and learn. And what gets us incredibly excited is that, that first farm took a lot to develop, and we're incredibly excited at how far we've come, but we're only just beginning to learn. And what happens is those 2,500 cycles are a great start, but the farm we're putting up in Florence, Kentucky right now will do 7,500 cycles a year. The farm that we'll put up down in Georgia is going to be potentially 10,000 cycles a year. And what that means is that each of these farms is really a high fidelity data producing node in a distributed processing network that we're building and hope to train to learn more and more about plants. And that might all sound, great, but a little bit theoretical. And, it's actually more than that. It's no longer theoretical. These are things we're actually doing on a daily basis today, right? We can go through, and what allows us to do is learn how to purposefully stress plants to elicit responses, right? Everybody knows that if you have more wind on your crop, it's going to be a bit harder, right? Because plants can't run away, or can't move, that process of stressing plants is incredibly important, an incredibly important part of how we make sure that our product can be crisp, that it can be the right color. And so we're actually using different lighting spectrums to encourage, different anthocyanin production and other things. And I'm going a little too specific, but the point is that all of that really conceptual data talk is kind of useless if we can't actually turn it into something tangible that you can see in the plant when you're eating. And that really is what we care about most. At the end of the day, we believe fundamentally that it's all about the plants. And all of the technology in the world can be fantastic, but if you're not providing a product that people actually want to eat, that people actually love to eat, then none of it really matters very much at all. And so when we look at this, these are some different metrics that we look at, and the big one that we focus on, that we take, I think, most pride in, is in that brand repeat rate. And what that means is that when people see us in the grocery store and purchase our product and try it really for the first time, that about 40% of them come back and buy it again within just a couple of weeks. And that's really a big focus. It's a difference, because when you go to the store and you're buying produce, it can be difficult. You have to check the back. You have to squish the fruit to be sure that you're getting something that's you can take home and that will last in your fridge. And because we've been able to kind of compress that supply chain, with our product, you don't have to go through that same process. You can go in, and our hope is to be able to really make a promise to you that when you buy our product, it'll last in your fridge, not for a couple of days, but potentially for a couple of weeks. And that's not because of any mad science. It's really just because that's the same amount of time you have with the normal product you find, but it spends the first 2 weeks of its life in transit, right? Whereas with us, you're getting it only 1 or 2 days old. And so we're able to give all of that shelf life, hopefully back to you into your fridge, to make it easier to really indulge in a healthy diet and in a healthy lifestyle. And we're in a number of different places, obviously a large concentration in Ohio, but we have research and development in Arkansas, manufacturing in North Carolina, and are building these kind of really, truly next generation farms in Kentucky and in Georgia. But at the end of the day, it's not just about lettuce, right? We have 3 core pillars that we really believe in as a company. The first one is around being better for the world, which to us means sustainability. It's not just being structurally sustainable, but really ensuring that we build that into our decision making so that as we grow, it's a net positive for the world. The second pillar is around being better for the community, which is about being engaged in our community, trying to help reconnect people with where their food comes from, whether it's coming from us or coming from other local farmers. We're incredibly open and want to be engaging with the local farming community. Part of the beauty is that we can change what we grow throughout the year, so that if it's local season for basil, we will grow less basil, right? And we really want to make sure that we're kind of providing a benefit to the community and connecting people back with their food and being active. And the third pillar is around being better for you, which is around providing people with an opportunity to indulge in that healthy lifestyle, which is so much tougher than it should be in a lot of places, including where I'm sitting right now in Cincinnati. It's winter, strawberries at the store just don't taste very good. So it's tough. I don't want to eat as much fruit, even though I might know that I should. And so as we look to the future, we're not hoping to just grow lettuce in some far off place, but we're really hoping to grow, a wide range of crops that we can hopefully bring to your table more and more quickly and really provide people with the opportunity to indulge in the fresh fruit that, our parents and our grandparents always talk so fondly of. So with that, I'm happy to open it up and discuss.
Yes, and thank you, Noah. That's fascinating. I know the number of questions that we have popping up shows how interested people are in what you've just told us about. So this is one of those times when I wish we'd been in the same room, because when you were talking about how hard farming was, you would have seen half the room nodding heads, because we have a good handful of our local organic farmers on today. I also have our extension agent, our UG extension agent, Ashley Best, and some folks who do education in our schools around agriculture. So, Ashley had asked specifically how to connect with the folks at 80 Acres and discuss how they can partner with you from the Extension Service. And I would extend that and just maybe say, how have you guys worked with local farmers, local ag education programs, and so forth in the communities you're in today?
Yeah, so I think in a couple of different ways, and I think our view is first off that there's not a one size fits all answer, right? Every community is different, has a different composition, and so we want to make sure that we're really kind of being guided to a certain extent by where we are. The community up here in Ohio, we have a really strong, farmers association, farm bureau, and so on. We also have a lot of kind of technical schools that are prominent up here. So we've done everything from working with elementary school kids and trying to just have them come in and see what it looks like and pick fruit and put it right in their mouth, understanding that raw food can be good, to working with we have a local school here named Butler Tech, where we've gone through and tried to help build programs with them to incorporate certain students and get them actual hands-on experience working in some of our farms so they can get familiar with the technology. So I think the opportunities are pretty wide and really, in our mind, just kind of dependent upon what the right way to engage with you guys will be. So I'd say please obviously reach out. I think if you reach out through Nancy and Maurice or directly to us, happy to connect and figure out what that right answer is.
Good. And one way to make, and this is probably not a really simple question to answer, because I know building anything these days is hard, the supply chain and so forth, but just to set expectation in people's minds of when you really will have a lot of folks here on the ground working, when might that be?
Yeah, so definitely is a tough question. I want to be a little careful. You know, we're very
Sure.
much driven by our customers, and with these things, they're never quite done till they're done. But as you guys know, we've obviously already kind of started that process and are well on our way. You know, we're expecting to have production at some point, you know, this year, hopefully sooner. You know, we're hoping for summer, but like I said, sometime this year, I think is a reasonable expectation of when we'll start to really be around.
And I would say to the folks on here that have, you know, explicitly asked for, you know, information, how to connect, how to contact, I think usually I'm able to save the transcripts from these chats and Q&A, and if so, we'll build a list of our interest group. If for some reason you don't hear back from us on that, you know, just reach out again and let us know, hey, I'm interested in connecting with 80 Acres when they're when they're up and running here in the community, and we'll make sure that happens. Had several questions in here that were in some way or another around employment, and you know, just I would maybe say what advice do you have, career advice for anyone who's interested in what you're doing, either from the technology side, the innovation, or from the farming side? I mean, I've talked to a number of people in 80 Acres since, you know, you were first announced, and it's fascinating. Some came from a very agricultural background into the business, others from a very technical or business perspective. So if somebody says, wow, I kind of, you know, this is the future, I want to be part of it, what can they do to immediate employment opportunities, but also, you know, preparing themselves through their education?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I appreciate anyone who is kind of excited about it. I think to us, both the exciting part and the scary part is that, you know, we're really kind of learning and figuring that out as we go along. So I have ideas, and also, you know, welcome and encourage anyone who's interested to come be a part of kind of, you know, defining that journey with us here over the next couple of years. Exactly like you mentioned, I mean, we have people kind of from all over. We have farmers, and we have a grow path within the company where you really kind of focus on the crops. We have, you know, a lot of more technical, they're not really manufacturing, but kind of manufacturing adjacent jobs where you're still working with the plants, but you're more so on the machinery side, right? To kind of really all types. We have, you know, an engineering focus, as there's obviously in maintenance, as there's a lot of technical work to be done to really keep these farms operating on an ongoing basis. I guess the big piece of advice in my mind would be, you know, in order to really be successful, there's some preparation that can be helpful, because we're really trying to combine kind of the science of farming and understanding of plants with the efficiency and consistency and precision of manufacturing, with kind of the detail of engineering and technology. And so I think if you're looking at how to get into this space, I'd say really investigating any one of those three is a really strong place to start. But, you know, trying to make sure that if you're already really strong in engineering, you know, try to read a little bit, learn a little bit about plants, right? I think that's where we really find that huge opportunity for growth, where if you already join us and or to kind of get involved at the farm level in your own thing, that's how, you know, those are the people we find to be most successful. Whether you're coming straight out of high school or coming with a master's degree in biology, that kind of cross-functional knowledge is what ends up really making a huge impact in our space.
A little different spin. I thought this was a good question from Daniel Parson. He runs our organic farm over at Oxford College. And his question was, you mentioned issues of food insecurity. What is your vision for solving the problems of equity and distribution that underpin this issue?
It's a fantastic question. I think the first part is, and this is the part of the answer I'm most confident in, is that, you know, I'm certain that we will only be kind of a part of that solution. And so our hope is to obviously help. But I think it is a broad question about how we continue to kind of evolve our food system as a whole. And I don't believe that vertical farming by itself is going to be able to obviously, you know, solve any of these massive problems only by working kind of with the rest of our food production in this country, we're going to get to a good solution. I think there's different pieces of it. And when we talk about kind of equity and distribution, there's an obvious point, which is around price point, right? Which is if you're selling, hey, this is great, super healthy, nutritious food, and it costs you $10 a clamshell of lettuce, that's really great and fantastic and not going to be very helpful. And so I think we've really gone out of our way. Part of why we didn't scale was we didn't want to bring this product, to market until we were able to provide it kind of at that same price point as organic product is generally sold for. Now, while that doesn't address necessarily, obviously, the entirety of the community, it does make it somewhat broadly available to where it isn't a specialty item that you have to save up to go purchase, or that really should be kind of having a huge impact. And I think as the technology continues to develop, we hope to really continue to improve on that front. The second part of my mind is a little more of how do we do our part step by step, which is around engaging the community and just getting people to try fresh produce that maybe don't have that exposure today, right? We have a lot of folks here in Cincinnati that, for example, didn't know you could eat what they call raw tomatoes. It's just not done in their communities, the way they've grown up. Just wasn't something they were aware of. And so I think, there's little ways that we can kind of do our part by trying to engage and just get people to try it again.
You won't find people eating raw tomatoes here, but you will find them eating tomatoes. So,
so I think there's a lot of little ways, and I don't know by any stretch exactly what the answer will be. If anyone does, would love to talk to them. But I do think there are a lot of little ways that we can hopefully kind of help move things in the right direction and incrementally make food.
That point of bringing things to market, several people had asked, like, where can they buy your products locally today? And then a couple other questions were more around how do you plan to introduce your brand in the market and get people acquainted with your product?
Yeah, so today we sell to a number of different retailers and also to different restaurants, and we're in big ones like Whole Foods and Fresh Market and Kroger in our area. We don't yet ship to Atlanta or that kind of general distribution center area. About as far south as we go right now is kind of the Lexington area, a little bit into Nashville. But as we start to have product up, from Whole Foods and Kroger's and others, we also work with more regional folks like Dorothy Lane up here and Jungle Gyms, who are really important to us. Country Fresh Market. So I think our hope is to you'll be able to find us in some of the larger areas as our customers kind of ask us to be there. But we also try to find, and from a market activation perspective, we'll have a team of people who are going to be down in the area sooner rather than later, trying to figure out where are the right places to where are the places that people are excited about this, and how do we make sure that we're not just in a big box, but we're also kind of in the relevant places locally, from restaurants to different smaller grocery chains. So I think it's a process. We have a team that'll go down and hopefully learn, because again, it's about communities. It's not a decision we should be making up here from Cincinnati without knowing more.
I see a question I missed earlier, but I think when I mentioned Ashley Best, our extension agent, before, but she says she's got some international animal science students from Columbia with her in the office today, and they were asking questions around how does the cost of vertical farming compare to conventional farming?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question because it's a very different kind of business model and structure, right? When you think about conventional farming, usually have land that's been dedicated for a very long time. And so you're really focused on kind of the incremental cost every year to get your crop. And you have kind of this supply and demand where if everybody has a good year, there's a lot of product, and so pricing will be difficult. And if everyone has a bad year, you won't have as much product, but pricing will usually be better. Right? With vertical farming, our balance is very different. It obviously costs a lot of money to get these farms up and running in the first place, right? It's high CapEx on the front end. But once we've gotten these farms running, because we're able to grow and do so many turns and the things, the OpEx is often, comparable, and we hope over time as we continue to get better, will actually allow us to have a lower cost structure on some of these goods, right? Some of the more complicated, perishable, fragile goods like berries that, you lose so much of them in transit. It's really tough. The video we talked about wheat, that's not a great crop necessarily. Not something that we hope to really ever have to grow. So I think we think about it as kind of high CapEx, and then how do we kind of make sure that the costs are similar on an ongoing basis, and over time get better.
Noah, one of the questions related to will you be certified organic?
So we are not certified organic, and for us, that is a little bit on purpose. That's a good question people ask. We hold ourselves to kind of all of the same tenets and principles that are held, but there is one key difference that to us is really important, and that's around the fact that we don't use any pesticides at all. Whereas organic produce still often better than conventional, but does and can use kind of over 100 different organic pesticides. And for us, that's such an important point of distinction that we wanted to kind of draw that out separately.
And then one other question that I'm not sure was directly answered is that, do you foresee in the future having a type of franchise model where you can engage smaller farms to connect with you to increase your distribution?
I love that idea. I think we've thought about some of those things. I think it depends on what the future looks like. And there's a lot of things out of our control, but I think generally, yeah, we're very interested in understanding kind of, one, as the technology gets better, how can we use it to support the local farming system? And two, as we become, large players in the areas that we operate, how can we ensure that we're kind of working with folks to help? So I think we're very open to that. And now that we're starting to get to a point where we're able to build really large farms like this, those are the questions that we're starting to have to think about and tackle.
I was going to ask your dad, but just to confirm it, but I'll let you confirm it if you can. But I understand he actually worked here in Covington for General Mills for a while back.
Yeah, I was actually born. I was actually born around there.
I wondered about that. So awesome. Well,
yeah, that was when.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Excited to be
there. This has been an amazing presentation. I think that if we have answered all of the questions, we might want to just give one more opportunity for anyone who has not felt like their question was responded to, or maybe that they've come up with a new question to put something in the Q&A box, and we'll get to that right away before we close out.
And while we're waiting for that, I was also going to say, and I'll look on your website. If I know I see some of your jobs posted on LinkedIn as example, but we're going to send out a follow-up email, and I can also send a link to the video you shared if that's somewhere. If you can just text me that, or we'll touch base. But anyway, I'll put some information in our follow-up for folks, both for finding job opportunities and also linking to the material, the video you shared. So
we do have two more questions, or actually one question and a thank you. The question is, do your farms specialize in particular crops? Now, you mentioned that you don't necessarily do wheat, but what other crops do you really specialize in?
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of a gradient. Today, we're growing, a range of herbs. We're growing a range of leafy greens, from arugula, spinach, kale, lettuces, and so And then we've also started growing different fruit and crops like tomatoes and cucumbers and strawberries and, some peppers. But, as we go through with that concept of cost being obviously something we're paying a lot of attention to, right? We can and have grown many, many, many more things, but we want to be careful to kind of make sure we've learned enough about them that we can really launch them in the market at an accessible price point before we end up kind of making them commercially available.
And that we have had people say how grateful they are to you for being on this presentation today. And I think that they're looking forward to having you in the community. Let's see, we have a couple more. Are you working with local agricultural colleges?
So yeah, I think that's something we'd like to set up. Not obviously down there yet, but those are exactly the type of things that we'd like to figure out. So absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Noah, for spending time with us this morning and kind of giving us an inside look at what just looks like a box over on Highway 142 across from General Mills right now. But it's fascinating to see what's going on inside. And I know, as I said at the start, we've met with other folks in your organization to get some participation and help with some events, seed packets, a poster describing your process. And so we really look forward to growing that and helping you connect with the people who have been on here with obviously a keen interest in what you're doing. So, and folks, look for a follow-up. It'll have hopefully it'll be out there before the fall comes. We'll have a recording of this session. And I'll have the links that I mentioned to information about employment and, more about the process that Noah shared with us. So,
and I would just like to add that we want to thank all of our participants today. I know some people had to leave a little early, but we want to thank you for taking your time today. Don't forget to log into sustainablenewton.org. We've got a plethora of information on our site, and we'd love to hear from you in terms of what you'd like to see for future webinars. And you're certainly welcome to join us at our monthly meeting, and you can find that in our calendar, which is on our website. So thank you to all of you for joining us today, and thank you again, Noah, and Maurice, thank you for coordinating.
Yeah, thank you guys again. I'm really excited to be a part of the community as we get going down there. So thank you for having us. Look forward to seeing you all again.
Yep. Thanks.
Everyone have a great weekend.
That's right. Bye.
Bye.